Welcome to NEWS.am. I have the honor today to host Dr. Abhinav Pandyam, the founder and director of USANA's Foundation, an India-based security and foreign policy think tank. So, Mr. Pandyam, well, thank you very much for your time and welcome to Yerevan.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
First of all, I would like to know what's the aim of your visit to Armenia.
So this is my second visit to Armenia, and I'm here today to speak as a panelist at the APRI forum on the sessions mostly discussing India-Armenia relationship and the strategic diversification of Armenia's foreign policy. So I have one more session tomorrow and one session happened yesterday.
Okay. What perspectives do you see for the development of mutual cooperation between Armenia and India? Our countries have mutual history and traditions of relations going back to centuries. What are the top priorities and primary directions for deepening the cooperation between our countries for India?
Today, I feel that India, is definitely making a very strong outreach towards Armenia, and India-Armenia relationship has become a major factor in the global discourse on international relations. However, I must say that this relationship has a very strong civilizational component. And this goes back long in history, and you can see that the India-Armenia interaction was very profound even in the ancient times, in the medieval times. Armenian traders had a strong presence in Calcutta. We still have a very strong Armenian church in Calcutta. Armenian schools were there. Armenia's first constitution was drafted in Chennai. In fact, I must tell you a very interesting character from Indian history, Sarmad. He was a Sufi mystic, an enlightened man, and a disciple of Dara Shikoh. He was an Armenian. So, and even in Indian novels pertaining to that era of 18th century, 17th century, you'll find many Armenian characters. Okay, even in the ancient times, those Aryan connections were very strong. So, I believe that we have a very strong foundation to build this relationship on. And today, the relationship is getting stronger because of geopolitical compulsions. As we can see that Turkey and Azerbaijan have ganged up against Armenia, and Armenia is facing the Azeri aggression on its borders and supported by Turkey. India also has a major issue with Turkey because Turkey supports Pakistan on the Kashmir issue, and after the abrogation of Article 370, that is the special status of Kashmir, Turkey has come out as one of the staunch and the very ardent supporter of Pakistan in the international forums. Azerbaijan has also declared support for Pakistan, and Pakistan has been fomenting terrorism, extremism, radicalization in Jammu and Kashmir for decades now, for more than 3 decades now. Lately, Turkey has its own Islamist and extremist agenda in the other parts of India also, and they are radicalizing the local Muslims, they are trying to foment unrest. So I think these are the geopolitical compulsions which has brought India and Armenia closer, and India needs a strategic footprint, a strategic partner in this area. Armenia is the best choice. The third component of this relationship is a very robust defense ties, and India has been selling the weapon locating radars, multi-barrel rocket launchers, drones, and all kinds of new weapon technologies to Armenia. We also have a very mountainous hilly terrain, so our armament industry is quite suited to fight in those terrains and also fight against an insurgency, proxy war. So I believe that those lessons and those that technology, in fact, can be very crucial for Armenia also. And now they are thinking of developing more and expanding this defense ties in a very strong manner. They are thinking of doing joint exercises, military training. Recently, I think India-Armenia signed an MOU on a larger defense cooperation and engagement. Finally, I guess that in the future there is also a strong potential for developing this relationship in the economic domain, in the tech domain, agriculture and tourism.
So can we conclude that the deepening of cooperation between Armenia and India in the military sphere, as Armenia is purchasing India-made weapons, we can conclude that this is based also on mutual geopolitical interests, and that India has some kind of geopolitical interests related with the South Caucasus, related with the presence and the enlargement of influence of Turkey, Pakistan, and this cooperation is not only based on economic context.
Yeah, I should say that in fact this is a mix of both geopolitical compulsions and economic compulsions. Definitely India has geopolitical interest in this region, but let me assure you, India's interests are never offensive. India's interests are very balanced, very rational, and mostly defensive. Because of this Turkey-Pakistan angle, definitely, we require a strong presence in this region, and maybe in the future intelligence cooperation with Armenia. So that is one major factor. But besides that, defense, component for its own economic reasons is also a very crucial motivating factor for us. We are trying to develop our own indigenous defense industry, and if our equipments, our weaponry, get successfully tested, like in Armenia, if it's really successfully accepted here, then it will open an international market for India in the defense industry. So that is also one factor. And thirdly, I feel that the third part is a very long-ranging factor, and that pertains to the rise of extremism in Central Asia and South Caucasus. And this is primarily due to Turkey's pan-Turkic ambitions. And India, we see that there's new terror groups like Islamic State of Khorasan province, they are trying to expand into Central Asia. My personal background has been mostly in counter-terrorism because I worked in Jammu and Kashmir. So I have seen how Pakistan-supported terror groups work. Recently, after the Taliban victory, Islamic State has come up as a very strong actor in Afghanistan, and they are trying to expand in Central Asia. We saw that recently they did a big terror attack in Russia. So I believe that in the future, this region is also highly vulnerable to this kind of terrorism, extremism and radicalization. And if that happens, that becomes a major security concern for India also. So definitely that is also a very important reason for us. So I guess, to conclude, it's a mix of both geopolitical and economic reasons.
What perspectives do you see for the deepening of relations between India and Iran? Because Iran is an important actor in the South Caucasus. The relations between Armenia and Iran are very important for us, and the deepening of the relations. So what can be the importance of deepening the relations between India and Iran in regard with the South Caucasus and Armenia?
So with Iran, well, we have a very historical and a civilizational partnership. And recently we signed a 10-year agreement on the Chahabhar port in Iran, and Chahabhar is very important for us, and India also plans to expand it further, from Chahabhar to connect this INSTC from Chahabhar to Armenia, and then Georgia or Russia and the European markets. So this is a long-term scenario which would be a very ideal situation for India. So definitely that's, and in this entire equation, Iran is very important because Iran is good friends with Armenia. So that's why Iran is important for us. But at the same time, I must say that India has developed as a good friend of Israel in the recent past. But that is not going to impact our relationship with Iran, because we have kind of de-hyphenated these two segments, and even the Israelis don't have a problem with that. Okay? So with Iran, yes, we have a very robust relationship, and this is going to expand more in the field of strategic connectivity projects. And another factor, like Iran is a Shia country. So in India also we have a substantial population of Shias, so they are basically, they regard Iran in a very high esteem, And India's major challenge is from the Sunni terrorist extremism. So that way also Iran is important for India, because to offset and to counter those, Sunni extremist terrorist groups working from Pakistan. So geopolitically also it's important for us. Yeah.
Okay. The Minister of External Affairs of India, answering to our news agency's question regarding the possible role of Armenia in the context of transit roads, announced recently that Armenia can absolutely play a role of transit country for India on its way to Europe and Russia. So can we conclude that Armenia is a preferable partner for India in the context of regional transits?
Yes, certainly it's a very highly preferable partner. Okay, so if we look at the map, the best case scenario for India would be connecting this INSTC from Chahabhar to the Syunik province, and then from there moving upwards towards Georgia and Europe. Okay. That is the best case scenario. Okay. But we know that currently the geopolitical situation, the security situation in this region is a bit more vulnerable. So that is, I wouldn't say unlikely to happen, but this whole project has its own challenges. But that doesn't make India pessimistic about it. No, definitely we believe that. We will definitely try to make this happen, and continue and deepen our relationship with Armenia towards this particular end of making this strategic connectivity project a success. And there is a reason for that, because I mean, INSTC corridor going through Azerbaijan or through the Turkish, controlled regions, that can be problematic for us in the long run, because these two countries are strong friends with Pakistan, and Pakistan has so far blocked our entry to European markets and to the overland routes to Russian markets and European markets. So now, I mean, if INSTC gets under the control of the two countries which are totally aligned with Pakistan, again it's going to be the same problematic situation for us. So we will certainly want that, the INSTC or this transport corridor passes to Armenia. That is the best case scenario for us.
So can we conclude that the interest of India related with the deepening of military cooperation with Armenia is also related with the importance of Syunik region regarding the transit possibilities of this region?
Well,
taking into account the threats coming from Azerbaijan.
Well, I will say that we should keep these two things separate. They are connected at some deeper level, but in the present circumstances, defense cooperation has its own standing. I mean, defense cooperation between India and Armenia has emerged as one of the most important pillar for strengthening this relationship. And India is selling its best quality weapons to Armenia, planning to expand it more into the military joint training and joint drills and all. But in the future, yes, if this whole relationship deepens and gets strengthened, India will be very much interested in the strategic connectivity project. And there is another reason for that, and that is the problems in the Middle East. So we were also very hopeful about the IMAC project, the India-Middle East corridor. But because of this whole Israel-Hamas war and the problems coming up in the Middle East and the Houthi rebels problems, they're trying to attack the ships in the sea. So that has made this IMAC project a bit challenging, and the infrastructure also is not ready for that IMAC project. In the case of INSTC, infrastructure is already in place, your connectivity lanes are already in place. It's just this little part, this Syunik region part, that has to be taken care of, and that needs to be developed. So I don't think it's something which is impossible. It can, I mean, it is definitely pretty much possible, and that's what I mentioned yesterday also in my discussion, that Armenia needs to bring down its strategic vulnerabilities. And when I say strategic vulnerabilities, I mean that these I would say this prying designs of Azerbaijan and Turkey on this particular Syunik region. So if let's say if you come up with a strategic connectivity project in the Syunik area, and you get big actors involved like India, China, Russia, sending their the transport vehicles and goods and all that, then this region becomes very secure because bigger stakes are involved. And if these big countries are involved, I am quite confident that the neighboring countries they will be less likely, they will be very discouraged to attack this area, because even our security will be at stake, because if this area gets attacked in that case.
What do you think? Is India interested in investing in infrastructural projects related with the Syunik region for completing the infrastructures with regard with the North-South corridor?
Well, that is something that's a real time possibility. It can happen. We have very strong business groups in India. Like if you have heard of Adanis are already operating several ports across the world. Recently, they bought a port in Greece. They are already controlling and managing the Haifa port. In India also, they are managing several airports and the seaports. So they have the capability, and there are many other groups also like that. So if right kind of lobbying is done, and if there are proper negotiations, and if you are able to convince them, then they would be able to invest in. They would want to invest in this area, and this is going to be a profitable area. Large volumes of trade will be there, so I don't see any problem in that. Indians will be willing to invest here.
There is also deepening of relations between India and Russia. Does it open some kind of possibilities regarding the South Caucasus, also in the context of possible transit routes and in part of Armenia?
Yes, I think you're right. First of all, I must say that after the Ukraine war, Russia needs INSTC very strongly. After the IMAC, after this Hamas-Israel war, India needs INSTC very strongly. So there is the convergence of interest. And India is already buying large amount of oil from Russia right now, and we are selling it to Europe. Well, that's a different case, But then there's a very vibrant, flourishing trade between India and Russia. After the Ukraine war, this trade has risen multifold. So I think both the countries are interested in this INSTC, and they are like very strong partners with Russia. We have a very strong and old relationship, historical relationship. Prime Minister Modi is visiting Russia on 7th and 8th of July. So I guess both the countries are very positive about it, and if right kind of initiatives are taken, then this is a real possibility. And interestingly, I must say that like India's outreach in this region, India selling its weapons to Armenia, India building ties with Armenia, Russians are perfectly fine with that. I don't see that. I mean, there is no displeasure or discomfort in the Russian side with this. Even though they have a very vibrant and emerging relationship with China, but they are not uncomfortable with India reaching out to Armenia and the South Caucasus.
So thank you very much for this interesting conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your interesting and good questions. Thank you.